Hi, everybody. Stefan Vrees here from the Growth Sprint Academy. And today, within this podcast episode, the Growth Sprinters podcast, I am joined by Tom Wedding. Hi, Tom.
Hey, how's it going? Great to be on.
I'm fine. Thank you. It's a little bit late here. I think it's early at your place, right?
Yeah, it is. It's 8 a.m. over here. So yeah, Melbourne time. It's like super weird with the time zones. I never could
Yeah.
get my head around it.
So, are you an early riser? Do you get up early?
Yeah, I usually get up pretty early. Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell my audience a little bit about yourself. Who is Tom Wedding and what exactly do you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of, jumped into the entrepreneurial space about, probably a year and a half ago, maybe closer to 2 years now. And basically, yeah, kind of just juggled around a bunch of different things. I think everyone kind of starts the same way. They jump in, they, try and start this or start that, and they look into drop shipping, and then it's like a social media marketing agency, and then it's like this and that, and Amazon, and there's so many different ways to kind of make money online, right? And so I kind of started the same way, jumped in, kind of had no idea what I was doing. Eventually jumped into social media marketing and started an agency there, and went through a few different models of that, Facebook ads, and then also stumbled across the model of what's called rank and rent, right? And that's basically where you build a website, you rank that on Google for a local kind of service. And then once that site starts producing leads, you kind of send those leads over to a business owner and charge that business owner for those leads. And that's really the model that I kind of found the most passion for. And so now, like after going through that, having some good success with that, I then transitioned into actually coaching people on how to find more clients for that model. And so that's what I'm doing at the moment, running coaching program just to basically help people with that kind of stuff. I might jump back into that kind of model eventually. But that's really what my focus is at the moment, is just focusing on the coaching business and getting more coaching clients and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's actually something that honestly for me is a new thing, like rent and rent it out to business owners. Could you explain like how a site like that is working? Like if you build it and what happens actually?
Yeah, so basically you'll choose a niche, basically a service niche in a local area. So for example, it would be something like roofing, right? So like kind of roofing in, let's say we choose Houston, Texas, right? So roofing in Houston, Texas, and you'd build a website based around that. So, hey, this is a roofing website for Houston, Texas. And you basically, once you do all the SEO things on that site, it's going to rank in Google eventually, right? And when it starts ranking in Google, because people are searching for roofing in Texas, they're going to see that site pop up and click on it and call the number that's on there. And the number you have on there is basically a tracking number. So you can kind of control where those calls go, basically. So you can kind of redirect it from that tracking number to one business owner or to another business owner. And that's kind of how the model works. So it's really just building those sites, ranking on Google. When it starts generating leads, sending the leads to the right business owner, and then obviously charging the business owner for those leads that you're sending them.
Yeah, it sounds pretty easy actually, but is this like a concept that has been around like a while now?
Yeah, it's been around for a very long time now. Yeah.
And you have done it yourself. So how big were you able to grow that kind of a business?
Yeah, so you can scale as big as you want. I think the biggest roadblock people run into is that it takes a lot of time and money to build the sites, right? And what people tend to do is actually build the sites out and then wait for them to rank. And then once they rank, they start finding a paying client. And I think that's a very slow way to do it. So actually what I teach in my program is to actually sell up front, right? So pre-sell the sites before they even have leads being generated so that you can get cash flow coming in quicker. And I think that's the one thing that people really struggle with doing is scaling fast with this model, because it does take time and effort into actually ranking those sites if you don't have a team behind you, obviously. And that can really drain people. So I think if people want to get to the cash flow a lot quicker, you got to start pre-selling or selling up front these websites before they're even generating leads, before they're even ranking. And that's really where I see the most potential with this model. But yeah, very scalable. I think, you could easily get to 6 figures, 7 figures, closer to 7 figures if you had like a ton of sites. But yeah, it's really up to anyone who has the time and energy and to actually build the teams, build the systems to actually
Yeah.
scale this out.
Yeah, and that's actually also something what I talk a lot about is when you start growing and scaling your company or agency, any business for that matter, is that you need that team, right? You need to have a really good team that you can trust to do the job so you can actually focus on more of the strategic growth, right? So, what would you advise like people that are getting into this and they really want to make this a real business? They want to grow their team. What kind of a team would they need for that? And what do you look for if you are growing a team for this? What is your go-to method?
Yeah, so it's been really interesting to find that work that stuff out because when I was running this model, I had a team of 8 virtual assistants.
Mhm.
Basically, they were doing the research for which websites to build next, and building the actual websites, writing the content for websites, writing um, you know creating backlinks and stuff for the website. So they were kind of doing everything for me, and that's really like what I would say is like a really important team to build is a team with virtual assistants because when you outsource the full process to some SEO professional, it's going to cost you a lot of money. And
Mhm.
obviously these are like little assets that you own and you don't want to be spending too much money on them, right? So I think it's really important to eventually like find that VA team. And what that comes down to is first understanding how the process works. So
Mhm.
cool, how do I build a website? How does that process look? And then mapping it out in the right way, creating the right system and process so that a VA can come in and follow that exact same system and do the exact same, get the exact same result that you got, right? And that's what
Mhm.
I think is really important for people to do is work out what their building process looks like, what their ranking process looks like, and then outsource accordingly from there. But that's really the main things I would say is important is finding that VA team to build and rank. On the prospecting side, it gets a little bit more interesting. That's like the main thing that I teach in my program is like how to actually attract business owners
Mhm.
as opposed to have to go out and cold call like a lot of people do,
Yeah.
right? And that's really the biggest thing that I see people falling behind on is they spend all this money trying to hire the VA team, but they don't have the lead flow coming in to actually make
Mhm.
any deals happen. So they don't have the cash flow to actually afford the team, that they lose the team, and all of a sudden they quit the model, they go to something else, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really why a lot of people who jump into this model, they don't see the bigger picture and they give up very quickly. So there's a lot of people who have jumped in. I know so many people who have jumped into
Yeah.
this because again, it's been around for a long time and they've just jumped in, haven't seen like immediate success because they haven't been doing it the right way. And then in turn, they kind of just give up and move to something else. So it's quite sad to see. It's a little bit off topic, but yeah, that's
No, no,
definitely systemized.
I think you're spot on because that's what they say, right? Doing business is 80% mindset. And if you're thinking that you're just going to do some quick wins, then you're in for a surprise, right? It's with everything. I mean, I've been victim of that as well. I must admit that if I was looking for some new model, then drop shipping looked pretty awesome because you see all these guys running around with fancy cars and a lot of money and they scale their store within 30 days, but you don't really see what's behind it or what kind of mindset that you need. So that's definitely really important. And for a mindset, like what is for you the most important to have, like to be able to be successful within this kind of business or any business?
Yeah, so I think in terms of mindset, always comes down to discipline, I think
Mm.
that's the biggest one that the people just overlook. And it doesn't come down to motivation, it's not inspiration, it's none of that crap. It's just straight discipline. Like, hey, are you able to sit down at times that you don't want to sometimes and do the freaking work? Because
Mm.
that's all it is. Like, that's literally all it is. And I think another important thing with mindset is also having some like kind of I don't know. It depends on people's spiritual beliefs and stuff. Like my beliefs is that we are creators in this life, right? And that we create everything around us because that's what I believe is the truth. And I think whatever you believe is your truth, you need to make sure that it's serving you in your life, as opposed to kind of taking you down. So that with your mindset and stuff, make sure it's actually something that is useful, right? And I read this
Mm.
book a while back called Useful Belief. It's a very, very good book if anyone wants to read that one. But it's about basically at any given moment, you have the choice to either believe just random beliefs that don't serve you, or you have the choice to believe things that are useful beliefs. And I really love that kind of concept, right? Of really just thinking, okay, cool. In this exact moment right now, in the choices that I have right now, am I thinking the most useful thing for me, right? Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. Is it the most useful thing for me right now? And that's really how I look at like most of the choices and decisions I make in my business is, is this the most useful thing for me to be doing right now? And I think, yeah, I could talk about like tons of mindset stuff, but those two things have really influenced me is, yeah, what is the useful belief and just being disciplined. Like if you have those two things, those are two big things that I've found very helpful.
Yeah, then it doesn't really matter which kind of a business model that you choose, right? You can do literally anything. And having that right mindset is so important. Having that right kind of beliefs, the discipline is so important. And would you say also like having the right type of goals is important? Not not only about like a couple of days ago, I was talking to somebody. I was trying to hire somebody, and when I was talking, yeah, what are your goals? And that person literally said, like, I just want to get rich. And I mean, I think that's for everybody. I mean, everybody wants to be rich, but that's I think that's the wrong mindset or the wrong goal where if you don't see the results right away, then you're immediately going to get backtracked because your mindset is in the wrong place or your goals are not really set. And I wouldn't say realistically, but that's not a goal, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, 100% agree with that. And I think it's people get so caught up in the goals and
Mm.
instead of actually thinking about the journey because that's the main piece that gets you to your goals. Like if you just sat down, put your head into the work, did the work, 12 months from now you'd be in a totally different place, closer to the goal that you wanted, right? Instead of
Mhm.
just like thinking so much about what your goals are. Like you don't need to do that much thinking. You just kind
Yeah.
of you work out what direction you want to go and just stick with it. Stay focused on it. I think so many people jump around, especially with the short attention spans we have nowadays, and it's so easy to kind of fall off everything. So all you really need is like pick a model, focus on it, and just be disciplined enough to put the work in. And like really, you don't have to do too much goal setting. That's what I found anyway. That these are my opinions, and I don't
Mm.
want to like say it's the absolute truth or anything, but this is what I believe is my truth, and I love to kind of share that. And it's interesting hearing different people's opinions and being open minded to everything. That's another thing that I found very, very important as well. Coming into any business space is like being open-minded, because if you think there's only one way to do things, you're always gonna miss big opportunities. And so open-mindedness, big one there. But anyway, back to what we're talking about. Yeah, I think goal setting is definitely helpful, like to give you direction, especially when you're starting out from zero. You need that goal setting, right? You need to be aiming for something, otherwise you're not going to be able to take the first step. So yeah, definitely goal setting, but I would say the careful thing to look out for is set goals that actually align with you, because a lot of the time, like you said, people are like, oh, I want to get rich, but deep down they're like, that's not what I want, right? I
Mhm.
don't want to get rich. I just want some money so that I can have freedom, or I can travel, or I can feed my family, or whatever that extra thing is. That's the real reason why they want to do it, and it's not just because they want to be rich. And what I've found, like the honestly, my goals, right? My why I'm doing this, like I think it's interesting to talk about, because my why is literally because I want to. That's my why. Like it's not for any external reasons. It's just because I want to. And that's, I think if people can get to that place, that's such a healthy place to operate a business from, because you're never thinking like, oh, I have to work on my business. Damn. It's no, I want to do this. This is my choice.
Yeah.
And like when failures pop up, when obstacles pop up, things like that are actually exciting, because it's an opportunity for you to grow as a person. And yeah, I kind of went a little bit off track again. I'm sorry,
No,
but
no, no,
that's
that's
yeah.
fine though. That's fine. I mean, it's aligned with what I talk about all the time as well. I mean, we can talk about business all what we want, but having that mindset, setting those goals, and also indeed, like what you said, aligning those goals with who you are, with why you do it, setting your vision looking at where do you want to be 5 years from now, and working towards that. And if it feels right to what to do what you do, and you know that it will bring you to that vision in 5 years from now, then that's the thing that you should do. And for me, like a large part of my life, I have been within corporate, and I felt that this was not really what I wanted to do. So now this transition, actually, Corona helped me to transition into something that I really, really would love to do, and I do it right now, and it feels so much more fulfilling than everything that I have ever done. And indeed, if you put your mind onto it, like I just keep doing the things, and just being comfortable, being uncomfortable is a big one as well for me. And yeah, it brings you in great places. It brings you relationships. It brings you connections that you would ever not even think about. So absolutely, I yeah, totally agree with you. So if you would think about your vision, Tom, like when you started this out, like the coaching business, what was your vision like? Why did you really wanted to do this?
Yeah, so I guess like when I first started, I had total wrong vision, right? I was doing the same. I started for the same reason everyone else did. It's like, hey, I want the Lambo, I want the Rolex. I want to flex my money. Like that's the wrong reasons to start up, right? And that's how I
Mm,
started, like before everything. And yeah, coming into the coaching space, it was a little bit more aligned. It was less of like, how can I make the most amount of money? Obviously, that's still like part of it, right? But it's more focused on like, how can I make the most impact to the
mm,
most amount of people in this space? And that was really the focus of coming into the coaching space. And I think most coaches should think like that, because if you're not worried about your client results and the impact that you're making, then you're going to make a whole lot less of money, because
mm,
people want results, and that's what you're selling as a coach. So
mhm.
really, if you can't get someone to a tangible result that you sell, like you have to change things around a lot more. So I would definitely say when I came into the coaching space, the vision was more about impact and actually being able to generate results and
Mhm.
making sure I had the systems to do that, right? So I took myself through some learning experiences and stuff about, okay, what's the best way to actually help people actually implement? What's the best way to
Mhm.
help people do this and that? And working out like little things like that I didn't quite know, because I had never been in the coaching space before. And that was kind of hard to work out and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, as long as it aligned with the vision, I think it was always the right thing to do. And that's why setting the right kind of visions is really important, especially when you're starting out. It's so hard to do
Yeah.
that because you're so blinded by just all of the people flexing their
Mhm.
money and showing the rich cars and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hard to really notice that that's not their why. That's not their like why they do what they do. They don't do it for the
Yeah.
rich cars and stuff. That's just a byproduct of all of the work they've put in, right? And that's something people don't realize. So definitely when people come into the space, I think it's important to set that vision with the right intentions.
Yeah. Would you then also say that the people that you want to work with are those people that have the same kind of vision as well? That you do not really want to work with the guys that just want to have a quick rich scheme or something like that.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Obviously, you're always going to get people who are just doing stuff for money, and I mean, it's
Mhm.
fine if that's what you
Yeah.
want,
I mean,
right?
yeah.
I don't think there's anything inherently wrong or right about it. It's just it kind of is whatever you choose it to be, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I'd say definitely some of the people I coach are more aligned with like wanting to impact the business owners they work with, whether that's at their forefront of the mind or the back front, either way. But that's really definitely something that I encourage people to think about is like, hey, you're actually helping business owners here. And it helps them to actually, on sales calls with these business owners, close them easier, because it's like when you realize you're selling something that actually helps someone, you can be so much more confident about it, right? On the phone,
That's
when you're selling, you could be so much more confident. And that's really important for sales calls, right? So yeah, definitely aligned with, want to find people who are aligned with that kind of same vision, because that's important.
So if we're talking about the people that you work with, mostly are those agencies then that create those kind of sites, or are they really individuals that do that?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. It's a bit of a weird kind of model. It's not really
Yeah.
like mainstream. But yeah, there's definitely a mix of like some agencies do it, and
Mm,
then mostly individuals, I'd say, is the big one. Yeah, mostly
mm,
just people trying to, come in, start their first business, or they've run another business and they're transitioning to this. That's kind of what I've seen the most of.
So we're like in my business, in my coaching space, and my audience is really about agency stuff and e-com stuff. But if you're talking about agencies, and actually like the things that an agency needs in terms of team building, system building and stuff, that's what we need as well as coaches. In the end, if we want to scale our business, we need to do the same. What would you say, like in terms of for instance, like team building, what are the biggest hurdles or obstacles that you found out in your business, but also with your agencies, that they had to overcome in order to create a sustainable business?
Yeah, so that's a big one. That's a big one. And I think that's something that agency owners really need to work out pretty quickly, because you realize pretty soon that you can't do everything yourself. So
Yeah.
I definitely think team building is super important to work out. So yeah, in terms of biggest challenges you're going to find with it, it's obviously number one going to be finding the right types of people, right? Because you don't want to find like semi-good people. You want to find the best of the best who can help you to scale out, right? And from the start, that's very hard to do. So you're going to go through a couple bad people, and I think it's okay to accept that, right? There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things that happen that aren't nice to deal with, but that's part of the process of finding the right types of people in your business. But again, it always comes down to how well you build your SOPs, right? Your procedures, like what does your system look like laid out into a step-by-step plan, right? And how well have you laid it out for someone to come in and literally copy that, right? Because that's always going to give you the best results that you want. Another thing that I've found super helpful, and this is something that a lot of people might disagree with, but is actually training someone from scratch with no experience, right? And that's a very, interesting thing to say, because you're like, well, no, like if you're running Facebook ads or you're doing agency stuff, you want someone who has experience, right? But it's kind of a counterintuitive approach where you get to train someone from scratch. Benefits of that being that there's no set way that they do things, so they're more coachable, they're more open to learning, they're probably more likely to be loyal to you because you taught them from scratch, right? There's all these little things that happen, and that's really why I have always trained from scratch with everything I do, as long as I know how to do it well myself, so that I can create a system and lay it out in a step-by-step format so that they know exactly how to do it the same way I do it, right? But yeah, I think in terms of team building, it's super important for agencies to get the concept of. But like I said, the biggest struggle that they're going to have is like finding the right types of people, because it's not easy doing that. Finding someone who aligns with the vision of the agency as well. You want someone who's actually driven, motivated, and they're actually going to do the work, and they're consistent, and they're loyal to you. Like all these things are very hard to find. And again, you can like find like little jobs for like more of the talented kind of individuals, right? So things such as like media buying and like white label and stuff like that. I think that's definitely something you should not have your own team for until you're ready to do that. But from the start, just outsourcing some admin stuff like client communication and like running your prospecting for you, and just little things like that don't require don't really need you to be there, but they still need to be done by someone. And that's the task I think are most important to outsource first. And then obviously as you scale out, you want to start putting your own team for everything else. Again, it depends on people's vision with their agency, but I think it's super important.
Yeah, and I like what you said about the people that you hire need to be aligned with your own vision. And for me as well, I agree with you that hiring somebody and building them up from scratch benefits you even more sometimes than hiring an expert that thinks he knows it all and wants to be seen as the expert that wants and brings his ego with him as well. I always say, like, if you want to hire good team members, hire on character first and then on skill, right? That's what I do. And I ask particular questions within my hiring process that quickly filters out those kind of people that just come in for, or just have the wrong kind of character that do not align with me. Do you have any of those type of questions that you ask within your hiring process that you say, if I ask this question, I immediately know that's the right fit or not?
100%, definitely. So yeah, I'm a big fan of VAs because I think, in the Philippines especially, I think they're such amazing people over there
Yeah.
who like can do work. It's just time zones not too much different from where I am. It's like it's
Mhm.
nice, right? So yeah, those questions are really important. But anyway, I like to find VAs from the Philippines, and what I like to do in my application process is have like a thing at the bottom, basically telling them to do something, right? Which is either
Mhm.
like, hey, send me
Yeah.
a 1 minute voice recording, or this or that, or send something in Messenger, or email me this specific thing. And like you see who actually follows the task, and it's crazy
Mhm.
because like more than 60% of people don't actually do the task. And it's crazy because it's like, well, if you're telling someone to do something as an employee, you want them to do it. So
Uh,
that's like a little test right off the bat. But yeah, definitely in like the conversations I have following up after that is always asking the right questions. Like, cool, like what's your goals with this?
mhm.
Like do you see this being like a long-term opportunity for you, or are you kind of just looking for some quick money, or like what's the go with this? And then you kind of work out more as you speak to them, find out characteristics, traits, and stuff like that. Like you said, make sure they're aligned with you and your vision for the business, because they're going to be like part of it, right? So that's
Yeah.
important. But yeah, those questions are definitely important. And I can't remember my exact questions, but so sorry about that. But I do ask questions around like character and stuff like that
Yeah.
because it's super important to work out.
Yeah, what I usually do as well is like I ask them specific, like a test task to do or some kind of a project, small thing, and I just give them that. And some of them just, yeah, don't really know what to do, and they ask me questions through chat or whatever. And what I usually do, I do not answer. I do not answer, and the ones that are really good figure it out by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that I want to talk to, because
That's it.
the other ones will just every time will come back with questions to you. Even if you hire them, you train them, they will always come back with questions. No, I want people that just make it happen and just figure it out. Those are the ones that will learn the most as well, especially if you learn them up from scratch, right? So those are the ones that I would love to have in my team. Anyway,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's like really encouraging them to be like that as well as you go into,
Mhm.
like, once you've hired them as well, it's like encouraging them to think for themselves and solve problems
Yeah,
themselves. I think that's a really important thing to encourage for sure.
absolutely. Great, great. So you're scaling right now, correct?
Yeah, somewhat scaling. Yeah.
What is somewhat scaling? How does
I
that look?
mean, there's still like some foundational stuff I'm building, but yeah, as a whole, I guess you could call it
Yeah,
scaling.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in 3 or 6 months from now, where can I see Tom?
I definitely want to dominate this space. I want to become the go-to figure for anything rank and rent. That's the goal. That's the goal. And there's not a huge amount of competition in this space. There's obviously still some people who do it, obviously.
Mhm.
But I think as a whole, like the kind of approach I'm taking of like selling up front stuff, I can definitely see myself, dominating this industry and becoming one of the big go-to figures. So that's really the goal, is just getting enough reach to kind of hit that point where people are like, oh, hey, I need help with this. Tom Wedding's the guy, right? And so
Mhm.
that's really the goal with kind of branding myself as that kind of a guy who's the go-to for that space. Obviously, start crushing YouTube as well,
Mhm.
and yeah, just really just go for it. That's the goal.
So how big is your team right now? How big is your company or your coaching
Yeah,
business?
so it's actually really lean at the moment, really lean. So I only have 2 employees. So
Okay.
2 VAs helping me with admin stuff and prospecting, and that's really it. Eventually I will hire appointment setters and salespeople, but for now, that's something I want to keep doing, so that I can keep learning about my audience and what works best. But yeah, definitely pretty lean at the moment, and I think it will be lean pretty much going into the future as well.
Yeah.
A couple of the coaching programs I'm in are coaching some pretty good stuff that's how to keep your team like pretty low, because I
Yeah.
think it's you don't really need extra complexity. You keep things simple and it works. That's really all you need.
Cool, cool. Well, I'm happy to follow your trajectory as for the coming few months and see where you're going at. And yeah, I think you've got it pretty much down, like your niche and your business model. So yeah, good to see that. Thanks for your time, Tom, today. where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm mainly on Facebook. That's I run my whole business through Facebook. So if you follow me there my name is Tom Wedding, you'll be able to find me. I have a green profile picture, so it stands out. But yeah, that's where I'm mainly on Facebook. If anyone wants to shoot me a message or whatever, I love connecting with people. That's really it.
Okay, cool. So everybody go to Tom Wedding's Facebook page and just ask him everything about rank and rent. That's the one.
Rank and rent, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for your time, Tom. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.